was in the process of doing some sprinkler maintenance for the end of the year here, and I had this Diablo hose reel extended as far as I could get it, and then I added my extension and I was able to reach where I was working. But the problem was when I went to retract the hose and pull on the hose to retract it, there was no more length in the hose and I couldn't retract it. It was kind of locked up. So if you've had this same issue with either the Diablo, which is from Hardly Freight, or one of these similar looking models that are probably made in the same factory as this one was, then I can show you what I did to solve this problem. The first thing you might want to try when you're trying to fix this is first just take off these 5 screws that go around this little side panel, and you'll notice on one side the screws are a standard Phillips head screw, if you can see that, and on the other side, which is the side you really don't want to mess with, the screws are like a anti-tamper type screw, and on that side is the side where the clock spring is, and there's a lot of tension in that clock spring. Unless it's broken, there'll be a lot of tension in there. You don't really want to mess with that side of it, and that's why they put the anti-tamper screws in there. So once you get the 5 screws here off of this side panel, you can see into this side. This is the side that the hose goes in and connects with these 3 screws. But this is the pawl mechanism, and it's in the lock state as you see it right here. So if I'm going to go, I'll pull it one more click and you'll see it. There's one click, and there's another click, and so on. So that's the locking, that's the way it's locked, and the way you would want to release that is to be able to pull the hose a little bit and take it off, take some tension off the hose, and then rotate this in the clockwise direction, and that'll take the force off it. Now the problem is this is all plastic. Didn't give me a lot of confidence in looking at these pieces. It's all plastic, so there's a chance if you do it this way, and this is not what I did, but if you can get it, it's good, but you might end up breaking something because it is all plastic. So if you can pull on the hose a little bit to take the tension off, and then try to rotate this in the clockwise, you could take the spring off and then just rotate it in the clockwise direction, you might be able to get the air hose to release back in. The problem is that air hose is going to release at 50 miles an hour, so you want to do something to control the speed at which the hose goes back in, like hook a tool around it or wrap it, tie a rag to it so it doesn't take off on you before you're ready. Since I didn't have the benefit of knowing what to do with this, I wasn't sure if this was even the pawl or what this mechanism is, but that is in fact what the pawl is mounted on the side here, right on the other side of this wall, and then on the side of the hose reel is where the ratchets are that the pawl locks into. What I ended up doing here was just taking this clamshell and opening this part of the clamshell up and pulling the pawl out of the ratchets by pulling it out from the side rather than unlatching it. And in order to do that, you got to take these 3 screws in the middle here, which is where your sort of air seal is, and then this by the way also helps center the hose reel so it's in the right spot. So in order to put this all back together, you've got to align these 3 screws with what it mounts into just below that. So that's a little bit of a challenge. But you take off all the screws that are holding this clamshell on. I don't know if there's probably about 8 of them on here. There's a couple hidden here. There's the ones that you use for your mounting over here. And then as soon as you start to separate this clamshell, the hose will release because it'll pull this pawl out of the ratchet locations. Again, you want to use caution there in controlling how fast the hose goes back in, because it's going to release unexpectedly and it'll retract at full speed, like 90 miles an hour. It's going to come flying at you. So make sure you keep control of your hose as you release this clamshell. Have somebody hold this end or tie a rag to it so it releases in a controlled way, so you're not getting hit in the head or something with the hose. I took these screws out here to see if that would help me with this situation, and it didn't. You don't need to take these 3 screws out, and there's no way, if you take them out, it doesn't help you in any way. When I tried to put them back in, it made the mechanism freeze up because I must have over tightened them. So I had to leave these just snug tight in order for the mechanism to stay free. Another thing I learned today, and this is surprised me, I wasn't sure how these mounting clips work. I had it mounted on the wall, and I didn't have the screw here going through the mounting bracket or whatever you want to call it. There's one on the top, and they both have this hole in them, And as you can see, the screw lines with these tabs. And I think I must have just had them inserted in there part way, and they weren't fully inserted in there. So that in order to keep this thing on the wall, if you're wall mounting it, especially if it's above your head, you want to make sure you take this screw out and run it right through this bracket, and that way it'll stay on the wall. I didn't really understand this whole mounting system until today when I looked at that. Hold the camera on there so you can see how that ratcheting mechanism works. Pulling on this, and there it releases when the ratchets pass by, and that's how it releases when you release the hose. So it catches on those ratchets when they come around, and there it's locked in. So if you're lucky, you might be able to pull on the hose to try to take some of the tension, some of the tension off the pawl, and rotate this pawl in the clockwise direction to get it to release. But it's hard to do even with the hose, not a lot of pressure on the hose right now. It's hard to do, and you don't want to break that thing. So recommend taking the clamshell apart, but again, be careful and control make sure your hose doesn't come back at you at full speed, and also stay away from the clock spring side of this thing. So good luck with that, and hope that helps.